Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I will be going back through what happened at UFC London where we saw Leon Edwards get absolutely dominated by Sean Brady, where we saw Jan Blachowicz lose to Carlos Ulberg, saw Kevin Holland beat Gunnar Nelson, and we also saw Molly Mccann retire. But before I get into it, make sure to hit the like button, share button and subscribe button for more content. Right, let's talk about UFC London that happened this past weekend, where we saw Leon Edwards making his first return to the octagon since losing the belt to Bilal Muhammad at UFC London last year. And he got absolutely dominated by Sean Brady and he lost with a fourth round submission. And yeah, it was a completely one-sided affair. How Sean Brady didn't score a couple of 10-8 rounds, I'd have no idea. He literally had Leon, I think, in one of the rounds, like controlled time, 4 minutes 57 seconds, most in UFC history, just absolutely just smothered him. Like Leon couldn't get anything going, and I have to say it was a really poor performance from Leon. I did expect a lot better. Like, this is your first showing after losing the belt, where you said last time that okay, you may be coming in with an injury. Fighting at 6 a.m. London time may have been a factor. Okay, understandable, but you knew what Brady was going to be when you got the assignment. Obviously, Sean Brady was a last-minute opponent because JDM, Jack Della Maddalena, is now fighting Bilal Muhammad for the belt in Canada at UFC 315. So it was a short notice opponent. And maybe Leon didn't have enough time to sort of adapt his game plan from a striker to a grappler. But I just thought it's really poor showing because I don't know what's gone on with Leon. It's like the hunger. Where's the hunger? Because I fully expected, because when we did the preview um, with Callum and Jamie, we were talking about like Leon needs to show that hunger, that fire to get back into the title picture. And we said like a win against Brady would definitely get him back in contention if he puts on a really dominant display. And my God, we saw nothing from Leon. So absolutely nothing. I don't know whether or not he was carrying an injury coming in. I don't know what, but serious questions need to be asked. And we knew the crowd weren't happy because the crowds are leaving after the third round. I have rewatched the fight with the sound on because obviously during the watch on we don't really have the sound on, it's copyright, etc. However, the crowd were dead. Even if you saw Tom Aspinall's interview on Errol Hawani, atmosphere was flat. Atmosphere was flat at the event, and I know that the event is the highest grossing fight night in UFC history. I think it's like over $5 million, but he didn't even sell out the O2. He didn't even sell out the O2, but it's the highest fight night in UFC history. And if you would have paid £300 to watch that event, I feel for you. Because the card, was it the best card in the world? No. But me, Callum, and Jamie, we've always said sometimes when they put on slightly underwhelming cards, they usually deliver, and you're like, oh shit, this is a lot better than I thought. But this card was flat. There was barely any finishes on the card. Um, the Brits didn't really impress. Apart from Christian Duncan and Shannon Bannon, I think the rest of the Brits and Nathaniel Wood, the rest of the Brits weren't great. Obviously, I'll touch on Molly McCann later, but the other Brits weren't great. And from where we were 2 years ago with British MMA, it was popping. Look, think about the atmosphere for UFC London. Um, I'll exclude the last one because the crowd was a little bit flat, but it was understandable because of the time. Think of UFC London before that, at prime time, the atmosphere, the card, it was electric, and you got electric performances. An absolute shadow for what we saw, like, this past weekend, and I don't know where the UFC goes from here because think about, the big British fighters now. They're not fighting in London anymore. They're not fighting in London anymore. Paddy, that was in the crowd. He's fighting in America next month against Michael Chandler. We know Tom Aspinall is going to be fighting John Jones hopefully this year. So those are like your two big British names, and they're not going to be fighting in London. And you can probably see, Leon's next fight will probably not be in London. And I'm waiting to see, is there that next, out and out star that can main event a UFC London? And you're looking, you're going, no, not really. But where does Leon go from here? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think he needs to have a long, hard look at himself, because that looked like a guy that didn't want to be there. And look, I'm going to take nothing away from Sean Brady because I thought he was absolutely superb. Of course, I wanted Leon to win as a Brit, but you can't not admire the work that Sean Brady did. He absolutely smothered him. And fair play, he's now earned himself that number one contendership bout. But as for Leon, I know that for me personally, I think Leon needs to train elsewhere. I'm not saying sack his team. But maybe go abroad, train a few months here, a few months there, and sort of, get that fire back like he did when he was chasing the belt, when he was training at AKA to improve the grappling. I think for me, he doesn't look like that he's improved. He's a very counter striker. He wants to make sure that everything clean, look good. Yeah, this ain't a kickboxing fight. This is mixed martial arts, and I think he found that out when when he tried to go for a takedown against Sean Brady, who's like a supreme wrestler, and like you're looking at it going thinking, X, what? Eh? Like, why are you going for the takedown against a wrestler? And like even Brady said, like, oh, you fucked up. Oh, yeah, you fucked up. You just giving me the position. And look for Leon. I think he needs to go back to the drawing board. I think he needs to take some time away and then come back. Who does he come back against? I don't know. I think I saw Ian Gary to give him a striker. I personally wouldn't give him Ian Gary personally. I think he does need to probably fight a striker. I'd say give him. Is he fought Wonder? I'd say Wonder Boy possibly. Give him a striker to sort of get the confidence back, but I don't expect to see Leon for quite a while. But as for Sean Brady, now in the UFC rankings, number one contender. Obviously, for me personally, he should be the one to fight the winner of Bilal versus Jack Della Maddalena. But with the Shavkat shadow, I don't know whether or not the UFC are gonna put Brady versus Shavkat as like a proper number one contenders bout, which I won't mind personally because I think it'd be a very intriguing matchup. But I just have this feeling that the winner of the welterweight title shot, I just feeling that Shavkat's going to be the one to step in the fight. But then obviously you've got the Islam Makhachev situation. Like if JDM wins the belt, I do fully expect Islam to sort of insert himself to go, well, sort of done what I want to do at 55. Now I want the title shot 170. So you have to think about the Islam shadow that is sort of looking over the situation. Because if Bilal wins, Islam's not going to fight Bilal. Which has been said multiple times. But look, I think Sean Brady, for me, he's now the number one contender, and he should be fighting the winner of Jack Della Maddalena and Bilal Muhammad next. Moving on, co-main event. The return of Jan Blachowicz Been out since 2023, where he lost to split decision against Alex Pereira, which I thought he won against Carlos Ulberg, and it was very this was like the passing of the torch moment. Does Jan still got it? Versus Carlos Ulberg, who you know he's on the rise. It's a knockout artist, but I have to say, like the judging of the whole event, you see some scorecards, you go, huh? And this is one of the moments where all the judging was a bit like, what? Um, because I did not have Carlos Ulberg winning that fight. I have to say, whether or not you could say, oh, it's a robbery. I don't really like saying that because it's a bit of a cop out. But I did think that Carlos Ulberg didn't do enough to beat Jan. And the key difference is like when Jan was throwing shots, he wasn't throwing them as regularly, but you could see that they did damage. Every time he threw a jab, you saw Ulberg go, oh, yeah, I felt that. But Ulberg were landing two or three that didn't really do much. But if you're looking from the judge's perspectives, you're saying, oh, he's throwing more, so obviously he must be landing. But it wasn't the case. Jan was landing the more powerful shots. I thought the Jan leg kicks are elite, man. Like Jan Blachowicz got one of the best leg kicks in the game. Like just ask Pereira, just ask Ankalaev. Majority big leg kickers as well, but Jan's got one of the best leg kicks in the game. I thought he actually beat up the league leg of Carlos Ulberg a hell of a lot, and you could see that by the way that Ulberg was trying to switch stances. But I do think that they did come to the wrong decision. And look, in terms of like the Carlos Ulberg, the rise up the ranking continues. He now avenges Israel Adesanya defeat against Jan. And to be honest, the last time, like I was looking back through like Jan's like fight career recently, and I was like, the last time Jan won a fight where the opponent didn't get injured, which is the Rakic fight, was when he beat Izzy back in COVID for the when he won the light heavyweight belt. That was the last time he won a fight, like without the opponent getting injured. And since then, he's lost a close fight to Pereira. He drew to Ankalaev, and then he lost to Ulberg. For me, he beat Pereira, beat Ankalaev, and beat. I thought he beat Ulberg. So whether or not the UFC have robbed him the last few fights, yeah, potentially. But I just think that for Jan, I don't know what he does. I thought he looked really, really, really good. For someone's been out for 18 months, I thought he looked extremely good. Um, for Ulberg, that doesn't get him anywhere near a title shot. Like I didn't think his performance was particularly good. I think he'll get him higher up the rankings, but with a rematch with Ankalaev Pereira, you're gonna have to wait a little bit, and I think you're gonna have the. For me personally, I'd like to see Ulberg versus Brachowicz because you need to give Brachowicz something to do. I would have said Jamal Hill, but Jamal Hill's fighting Khalil Roundtree. I think later next month. So there's definitely movement at light heavyweight, but for me, Carlos Ulberg probably still needs like if he were to finish Jan Blachowicz, I'd be more inclined to say, yeah, possibly he does deserve the winner of Pereira Ankalaev. But personally, I just think with the performance, I don't think it warrant him to like it wasn't like a standout performance where you go, he's now the guy afterwards. I think he still needs another fight, and him versus Jiri Prochazka makes perfect sense from to me. Next fight on the main card, Gunnar Nelson versus Kevin Holland. I thought a really entertaining fight between the two, between Kevin Holland and Gunnar Nelson. We saw Kevin Holland hang off Gunnar Nelson's arm, nearly finished him in the first round. So it was a really entertaining fight. The right winner for me personally, I thought that was one of Kevin Holland's better performances at 170. And for me, this is where he needs to stay. This is where he needs to stay. I know the weight cut might be slightly more difficult, but at 185, he's so undersized. I just think 170, a fully focused Kevin Holland is a dangerous Kevin Holland. And I know Kevin Holland's not motivated by the belt because he said that like his motivation is not to be world champion, which in some people's eyes is a bit like, then why are you doing it if you don't be the champion? But some people just love to fight. Just some people love to fight, and Kevin Holland is one of those guys, and he always puts on fun fights. I thought the Gunnar Nelson fight was definitely a fun fight. However, where does he go from here? I don't think Kevin Holland's ranked at welterweight. I'm sure someone in the comments is going to let me know that he is ranked at welterweight. What do you do with Kevin Holland? I don't know. Just give him more fun matchups. Give him more fun matchups. Possibly give him someone at the lower part of the rankings. Personally, um, use his activity because he says he's going to be active. Do we see him at 170 next time? Probably not. He probably does take an 85 fight, which for me, it's not going to go well unless they match him up correctly. But we know what the UFC can be sometimes. But yeah, great fight from Kevin Holland. Good to see Gunnar Nelson back. We won't probably see him for another year. I know Gunnar's sort of been fighting once a year. But for Kevin Holland, hopefully see him back some point later in the year. He's going to be super active, so don't expect him to see him back in like less than 3 months, personally. But yeah, great fight, great performance by Kevin Holland. So I can't wait to see what he does next. So next fight, Molly Mccann versus, I can't pronounce the name, but announces so Molly Mccann retires at UFC London, and look, Molly Mccann is a trailblazer in her own right because she is the first British female, well, English woman to fight in the UFC. And you know what? She's had a good career. She's had a good career. And look, was her career as successful as she wanted to be? Possibly not, because she wanted to be world champ. Obviously, she couldn't, achieve her dream. But she gave us she gave us some really good moments. The two back spinning knockouts at back-to-back UFC Londons. You know, she has had great moments, but I just think you saw the performance. Like her opponent had a week's notice, full of energy. Like her opponent had more to prove. With the extravagant entrance. You sort of had to think, oh, she sort of needs to win. You sort of been dancing around and stuff like that. Like you need to win. Okay, you know what Dana's like. Dana doesn't like fight showing personality. And yeah, she got about it. She took Molly down, and we know grappling's Molly's weakness. And we saw that, after Molly's run, like her little knockout streak, and you gave it Erin Blanchfield, and I'm going, are you trying to stop her momentum? Because you're literally giving her like her jiu-jitsu, grappling supremo, and it literally showed in the first round because Erin basically took her down, dominated, and tapped her out, and you've just, you know, you've taken the stuffing out of the Molly McCann momentum, and then Molly never really rebuilt that. She's I think she had another fight at 125, then dropped down. Suffered another submission loss, but did get a submission win. So actually, Molly was coming off a win as well before this fight. But look, I've always said, like if you're not 100% in the game, like if you're like 100% not there mentally, then retiring is the best thing because you don't want to be hanging around for too long before you can take some serious damage. So I'm happy for Molly that she's managed to get out the game with her faculties in check because that's the most important thing. An absolute trailblazer. I wish her all the best in her retirement. I think she's definitely going to have a career. I fully expect her, her being a former Cage Warrior champion. fully expect her to be commentating on possibly a couple of Cage Warrior show, doing bits and bobs for the UFC. So she's not like she's going to disappear into obscurity after retiring. I do think that there's going to be plenty of opportunities for her, um, post fighting, property commentary. I know that she wrote a children's book, so the options are endless for Molly. But I'm really happy for her that she's made the decision to retire. I wish her all the best in her retirement. Yeah, and yeah, I hope that you're fulfilled with your career because it has been a pleasure watching your career in the UFC. Um, yeah, so I'm just glad that you've managed to get out of the game with your faculties in check. But next fight on the card, Jordan Vukic versus Christian Duncan. Another good good fight. Saw Christian Duncan win by submission. Um, could have finished Vukic in the first round. Um, Caught him with a lovely shots and Vukic tumbling backwards like a meme. Apart from that, I thought Christian Duncan looked good. Picked up the win. Vukic is now, you know, 0-2 in the UFC. So he needs to probably win his next fight, or else he could possibly be on the verge of getting cut. As cruel as that sounds, but unfortunately, the UFC is a cruel, cruel beast. Where does this leave Christian Duncan? Probably doesn't get him like a ranking fight. He probably needs to fight a couple of more like unranked fighters beforehand. Whether or not he'll be ready for a step up in opposition is yet to be seen. However, I do think that he should probably get a little bit of a step up. How much I don't know. I would say someone like a Bob, like a King Green, but maybe that might be a little bit too high at the moment. But there are some really talented like lightweights that aren't even ranked, so I don't think they're going to have a problem finding him a good matchup. And then obviously talk about the last fight on the main card, which was Nathaniel Wood versus Morgan Charrier. And look, that was a great fight. Watching Morgan Charrier at UFC France, electric fighter, great striker, and obviously when you put a great striker with a great striker, you get a good fight, and that's exactly what we saw. I thought Nathaniel Wood was a deserved winner. Don't think it was a 30-27 fight, which was what the judges scored it. I thought it was, 29-28. But for Nathaniel Wood, him at featherweight, I like. He's definitely grown into the featherweight frame. Obviously, he is a bit short for the weight class, but he's definitely filling out, and he's got a solid featherweight frame. What he does from here, I still don't think he's ready to fight someone for like a ranking number. Personally, I do think he needs another one, and then we can possibly talk about getting him a ranking fight. Who that will be against, I'm not 100% sure. I might do a separate video on who the fighter should face. But yeah, that was the main card for UFC London. I do want to touch on like the whole event as a whole, um, because I said that earlier at the beginning of the video. I thought the atmosphere was flat. I thought the arena wasn't even full. And I do think the UFC have got a major, major problem on its horizon, um, because look, I don't think the card was well promoted, which has been a consistent gripe I've had with the UFC for a while. It's like they are not using its promotional power to promote these fighters, because unless you're one of the big names, people don't really know unless they do their research. Like people don't really know unless they do the research. And look, the UFC is such a like a cash cow. Like they can get away with doing this because people are always gonna, pay the ridiculous money to go to the shows, to fill out the arenas, but not even to fill out the arenas. Like we saw, like the UFC London made what was the highest grossing fight night ever, and the arena wasn't even full. Like if you want to get those electric crowds, maybe drop the ticket prices, and and possibly stop doing as many Apex cards. Because let's be honest, the Apex, was a good idea in COVID, but we're no longer in COVID anymore. We're no longer in COVID. They should do their best to get it out on the road. Get it out on the road. I know it's going to cost more money, but are the UFC broke? No. Like, they're potentially going to go to Netflix for over $1 billion. So it's not like money running low. And I'm sure that you could fork out an extra bit of cash to go across the UK and across Europe to put on quality fight nights. Because then when you go abroad, apart from UFC London, you're obliged to put on good cards. Like, it's UFC Mexico next week. This weekend coming. Usyk versus Moreno. The card looks good. The card looks all right. But with the Apex, with the UFC doing Apex, fights, like Apex cards, it's just a cop out. It's just a cop out to put unknown fighters on there, and people are going to expect to watch. It's like, look, I know that the UFC have got a star problem, but that's a problem that they've caused. That's a problem that they've caused themselves. And when you have a roster of over 700 fighters, which the UFC have, like, how are we supposed to invest in them when you're not giving us a reason to? I think that's one of the issues the UFC need to sort out. I'll probably go into more deeper, like in like a separate video. I'll probably go deeper, but yeah. But in terms of this video, everyone, make sure to hit the like button, share button, and subscribe button for more great content. And I'll see you all very soon.